Okay, so Tron Legacy is really queer. But before we can talk about that, we gotta go over a couple of things, namely content warnings. There is a discussion of a suicide allegory. I have a timestamp on the screen and in the description if you want to skip that section. There is also a discussion of a conversion therapy allegory. Everything else is covered in the section where I discuss the problematic elements of the film. With that being said, this is an aggressive queer reading of Tron. If you don't have that relationship with the film, it's perfectly okay. And I'm not demanding that you do. I'm explaining my own personal emotional relationship to the film and what it means to me. So, death of the author is very much implied by unintentionally queer. So, let's get started. The version of this video you're seeing here on YouTube had to be heavily edited in order to get past the copyright system. If you'd like to see the full intended version, it's up on my Patreon, link in the description. I would love it if you get to watch that version. I put a lot of work into it. Basically, are you okay after writing all this Tron Legacy stuff? And I said, yeah, like a liar. Tron Legacy is a sci-fi action film and sequel to Tron. The original Tron was one of the earliest films to use extensive CGI and computer animation for a majority of its runtime. Tron Legacy was the directorial debut of Joseph Kosinski.
The director, Joe Kosinski, is a designer and an architect, and he comes at this film with a unique perspective that really creates something new.
And I've never ever worked with a director that spent as much time and as much focus on the production design of the film as much as Joe has.
Kosinski got his start in video game trailers, directing Mad World for Gears of War and Starry Night for Halo 3. He's continued doing commercial work alongside of his theatrical work, including a live-action piece for the original Destiny, which, if you follow my Twitch, you know I play an unhealthy amount of its sequel.
Last time this took 17 hours.
You may recognize Kosinski's follow-up to Tron Legacy that I would argue is a thematic sequel, Oblivion. A high-concept sci-fi film about identity and relationship to technology in the world around us. He is currently in post-production on a film starring Chris Hemsworth called Escape from Spiderhead, based on a short story by George Saunders about a facility that uses emotion-altering drugs on its prisoners. And his next film to release is a sequel to one of the most famously homoerotic films of all time, Top Gun. What I really respect about Joseph as a director is that he takes his craft very seriously, even in what others might consider lowbrow genre pieces. He won't even phone it in for a 90-second Taco Bell ad.
So scare him off.
These nacho fries are consuming you.
Looks like you got yourself in some hot oil.
Yes, that's real.
When I look at your eyes, I was just like, I'm never really listening to what you're saying.
Bruce Boxleitner and Jeff Bridges return reprising their roles from Tron, with Bruce playing Alan Bradley and Tron/Rinzler's face and vocals.
User.
And Jeff playing Alan's partner Kevin Flynn, as well as providing the facial mocap and voice for the new principal villain, Clue.
Codified likeness utility.
This Clue is not the same character as the Clue who dies at the start of the original Tron. You probably know Jeff as, well,
I'm the dude.
But most of you won't recognize Bruce Boxleitner, who has a large number of credits to his name in less well-known projects. His most famous role, other than Alan Bradley, being Captain John Sheridan in Babylon 5. Joining the Tron universe is Kevin's biological son and Alan's surrogate son, Sam Flynn.
Oh, when I was 12, I really appreciated the surrogate father thing.
Played by Owen Best as a kid and Garrett Hedlund as an adult. You might have seen Garrett play Jack Nicholson, playing Indiana Jones, playing Captain Hook in the extremely strange film Pan.
Well, I think it's called flirting, but if you have to ask, I might be doing it wrong.
Quorra is a unique type of program, and someone I wanted to be when I saw the film as a kid. She's played by Olivia Wilde. You probably know Olivia for directing the 2019 comedy Booksmart. James Frain plays a Clue lackey named Jarvis that will do anything to save himself. His physical comedy is incredible, and he has some of the best jokes in the film.
What do I do with this?
I'll give you a hint. Not that.
You might know him from Star Trek Discovery as Spock's father, Sarek. Michael Sheen, who you likely know from his role as David Tennant's husband, gives the greatest camp performance of his career, which is saying something, as Zuse, the gay nightclub owner and traitor who goes by the pseudonym Castor. Zeuse's business partner, Gem, is played by Beau Garrett, who you might have seen as Cloud in Netflix's Firefly Lane, or as Gina LaSalle in Criminal Minds. And finally, there's Daft Punk as Daft Punk. The film pushed forward CGI techniques significantly. While aspects do not hold up perfectly and may be too uncanny valley for some, I need you to understand that this was drastically ahead of any previous attempt at this type of computer artistry. I am, as a computer scientist, game designer, and digital artist, naturally a big computer art nerd. This film does a phenomenal job with the technical work on all of its production design and does everything practical that it can and should be applauded for it. While yes, I understand that the face work to make younger Jeff Bridges for the character Clue is not great, I think it works well in the artificial world and does not detract from the film as much as some people make it out to.
A digital frontier. I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see.
And now, a recap for those of you who don't remember the plot of a movie from 2010 that probably lives rent-free only in one person's head. Mine. This is Kevin. He made the grid with a clone of his boyfriend Alan, whose name is
Tron.
And a clone of himself named
Clue.
This is his kid, Sam. Kevin abandons Sam after tossing him a coin for the arcade and disappearing for decades, leaving Sam to be raised by his grandparents and Kevin's boyfriend, Alan. Sam, now an adult, breaks into Encom Tower, his father's company,
Now that is a big door.
to release their new operating system to the world for free, fucking over the capitalists.
Given the prices that we charge to students, what sort of improvements have been made in Flynn, Encom OS 12?
And this year we put a 12 on the box.
Alan is still trying to keep Encom philanthropic and focused on mutual aid, and is still loyal to Flynn, but he's overridden by Snob Boy and Cillian Murphy in a beard. Sam, after releasing the operating system and leaving a dog video present, skydives off the top of Encom Tower after talking to the air as if it's his dad.
Hey, Dad.
Sam then gets caught by bastards. Sorry, cops. He gets home, where his surrogate dad, Alan, is waiting for him. Kevin sent Alan a message on his pager.
Oh man, still rocking the pager.
Yeah, your dad once told me I had to sleep with it. I still do.
Alan gives Sam the keys to the arcade, and Sam goes off to find himself and his dad. He finds a secret computer and gets transported to the grid, then gets trapped by other bastards. Sorry, fascist techno-cops, who misidentify Sam as a program.
I'm not a program!
And send them off to
Games.
Sam meets Gem, who tells him
Survive.
and get a new suit to be sent off to Disc Wars. Sam's not great at it.
Damn it.
But he manages to kill a dude, and a second dude, and then gets beat up by Rinzler in a gravity-shifting fight that's incredible. Once beaten, Rinzler reveals to the system that Sam is a
user.
Sam then meets Clue, who pretends to be his dad, and is a garbage boy stinkman, much like his creator.
I expected more.
That's a hell of a way to treat your son.
I'm not your father, Sam.
Sam then fights Clue in a bike battle. After Jarvis does this whole speech thing that's just for Clue's ego,
The crowd seemed quite energized.
It wasn't meant for them.
when it's just Sam and Clue left, with Sam knocked off their bike, Quorra comes in and saves them.
Get in.
They escape into the Outlands together, and eventually make it to Kevin. Kevin and Sam have a tearful reunion,
You're here.
but Kevin's bad at parenting. His son has waited decades to see him, and he just leaves him there emotionally distraught. Look at this sad boy.
He never thought he'd see you again.
Quorra and Sam chat for a bit. They then have a dinner, and we learn the backstory. Kevin made the system with Clue and Tron. Clue betrayed the other two after the ISOs, which Kevin calls
Biodigital jazz, man.
This man's lines are so unintentionally hilarious. The ISOs appeared, and Clue decided they could not be part of the perfect system. So Clue attacks Tron and Kevin after asking,
Am I still to create the perfect system? Yeah.
Then Sam I'm sorry, every time I watch this movie, yeah, makes me laugh so much I have to pause the film. Okay. Then Sam proposes that they have to take action, but Kevin still sucks and says no. Let other people handle it.
It's amazing how productive doing nothing can be.
So, Quorra tells Sam about a nightclub owner she knows, who helped ISOs in the past. So Sam goes off with Quorra's map, taking his dad's bike, meeting up with the siren from the entrance to the game, whose name is Gem. She brings him to the club, and let me tell you, the grid's hottest club is the end of the line. It has everything. Queer characters galore, Zuse being extra, revolutionaries getting ignored when they really should be getting support, Daft Punk pumping tunes, and the name's a reference to the original Tron's villain, so it's foreshadowing.
End of line.
So anyway, Zuse became a collaborator, but Quorra and Kevin show up, and with the aid of the revolutionaries in the club, start fighting their way out. Quorra's injured, but Sam manages to get her out of there, and Kevin's identity disc is nabbed by a Clue goon, who is then murdered by Zuse, and he takes the disc. Kevin finally realizes he's wrong and decides,
we do it your way.
While on the Solar Sailor, Kevin opens up a bit more to Sam and actually talks to them while Quorra is healing. Meanwhile, back at the club, Zuse and Gem try to make a deal with Clue, the disc for the city, but Clue just murders them because Clue's a fascist and no amount of bootlicking will stop fascists. Back on the Solar Sailor, Quorra wakes up and chats with Sam, telling Sam about how they were saved by Kevin, that they are an ISO, and that they view that portal as being like a sunrise. The team makes it to Clue's evil ship, where the heroes, and Kevin, find out that Clue is doing mass conversion therapy to turn people into a bunch of faceless, fascist drones. Quorra follows the terrible teachings Kevin gave her,
removing yourself from the equation.
But Sam's not okay with their significant other being a prisoner.
Quorra won't last.
So they decide to force Kevin into acting and go off to save Quorra. Though Quorra is not helpless, and the two of them working together allows them to beat the seemingly unstoppable Rinzler. They get Kevin's disc back and start flying to the portal. We get a big dogfight scene. Tron rejects his conversion therapy and declares,
I fight for the users.
Sacrificing himself so the rest of them can make it to the portal, though he does survive the fall into the sea of simulation. The team's ship is damaged, and so Clue's able to beat them there, but he needs the disc for his imperialistic plans. Kevin sacrifices himself, merging with Clue so that Sam and Quorra can escape into the real world. Sam says hi to his adoptive dad and declares that he's going to change NCOM for the better, then drives off into the sunrise of freedom with their significant other snuggling up behind them. And that's the plot of Tron Legacy. Now for... If you didn't know, the Matrix sequels are good and an intentional queer masterpiece. Go watch this video by Thamer Sophie and Sarah Zedig on why that is after you finish with this one. Tron Legacy, as with much of the action cinema from the 2000s, was heavily influenced by the Matrix because queer people make the best art. This also meant, whether it intended to or not, it's building off of the filmic language and textual metaphors, resulting in an imbuing of trans and queer subtext. Both films involve a character who is trying to define themselves, being led out of a restrictive system by a badass in tight clothing.
Get in.
To a wise teacher and guide who ends up learning from the protagonist. Both pieces involve queer nightclubs, antagonists who are fascist-abled cishet white men trying to convert all other programs into their ideal form, the antagonist being defeated through melding with the protagonist, the badass trans lesbian being injured and healed with magic code powers, and the final shots being sunrises that metaphorically represent freedom from an oppressive system and a hopeful future. By tethering to the queer aspects of the Matrix, it lends to queer readings of itself. This is why I think it's unintentionally queer. It drew from queer media, intentionally, without understanding the meaning that was brought with it. While it is heavily influenced by the Matrix trilogy, Tron Legacy ends up creating new themes and meanings from the metaphors it brought along. As a last note, before we begin the analysis, the film made choices. The video is not focused on the problematic elements, but I want to make sure you are aware of them before you watch the video, and especially if you're going to watch Legacy, because of my analysis. I enjoy this film, but I don't think we should ever shy away from the negative aspects of works of media that we enjoy. Most of my issues with Legacy come with its handling of agency with respect to the women in the film. For example, Gem, who basically exists purely to do things for Zuse, without any real agency or purpose that's her own. As well, all of the sirens are sexualized, have no agency other than a little bit with Gem, and they're some of the only women we see in the entire film. While most of the male programs are without agency, the only people who have full agency are men. other than most of the stuff with Quorra, but she has hers taken away at certain points as well. There's also this disgusting line from Kevin.
Profoundly naive. Unimaginably wise.
While it is about all ISOs, the only ISO we meet is Quorra. Lastly, the scene between Kevin and Sam here, it feels objectifying and I dislike it. As well, in order to play the role, Olivia Wilde had to, in her own words,
Tron fans, don't trip. Now I don't have to live on seaweed juice and tofu dust for 6 months to fit into a rubber suit.
Lastly, the only one of the heroes from the original Tron that doesn't return is Laura and her program Yori, who were played by Cindy Morgan, even though she showed interest in returning for the sequel. The writers were all cis white men, and it shows, and as much as I love the movie, I hate those aspects. On top of that, there are very few named people of color who have lines in this film. While the background characters are diverse, that doesn't mean anything when the speaking roles are overwhelmingly white. If we get a third Tron, the film would benefit greatly from a more diverse cast and writer's room. As well, there's moments like this that are extremely questionable, and
it was genocide.
Which is a messy handling of a topic of genocide. It's not great, and made myself and my Jewish friend who I watched the movie with uncomfortable. Layer onto this that Zuse, spelt Z-U-S-E, is both a reference to the Greek god and to a Nazi collaborator computer scientist named Konrad Zuse. It's not subtle what they're referencing. For context, both Legacy and the original have Jewish writing staffs, and belief and persecution are clear themes, especially in the original film. And I am deeply unqualified to talk about this topic. It's mostly outside the scope of what I'm discussing in this video. Frankly,
we don't have time to unpack all of that.
So now that we have all of the prerequisite knowledge out of the way, here's why. Alan and Kevin are first described as partners, which on its own would probably read as business partners, but when we add the context that Alan raises Kevin's biological son after he disappears, and that he was trying to shelter his son from attacks, it reads a bit differently. Layer onto this that Alan has slept with a pager for decades just because Kevin asked him to.
Dad once told me I had to sleep with it, and I still do.
And never gave up on getting his boyfriend back. I cannot stress this enough. This poor boy has been pining for his husband to return home for decades, and spent all of that time looking out for his son. Flynn's first reaction to hearing about Alan from Sam is to softly whisper his name.
Bradley.
And his first line after the time jump is,
I dreamed of Tron.
Who, as mentioned earlier, is a literal digital copy of Alan. He has a lot of deep sorrow over the perceived death of Tron. When Kevin realizes Rinzler is Tron, we can hear both his hope and his sadness in
He's alive.
And
what have you become?
I will come back to the conclusion of their story later. First, I want to discuss how reading them as gay is strengthened by out-of-movie canon resources and aspects of writing the film. First off, in the original Tron, Laura/Yori acts as the romantic interest for Alan/Tron. Even in the original film, the program's relationship to the user characters is reflective of their real-world counterparts. In this, Laura has been written out completely, which sucks, because it erases one of the few prominent women in the franchise. As said earlier, there are significant problems, and while I enjoy the film, it needed more women in it. However, Laura not being mentioned does lend to the reading of Alan and Kevin as being gay, considering canonically she's Alan's wife, but the only relationship mentioned or discussed in Legacy is between Alan and Kevin. As well, in Tron the Next Day, a short film edited like a documentary, Alan states,
Consider me interim CEO. I'm only doing it for Sam's sake.
Showing his dedication to his boyfriend's son, And the entire piece of Next Day is just about Alan's love for Kevin. In this, we also learn that Kevin and others used to call Alan Tron, strengthening the connection between Tron and Alan.
Well, the weird thing is, Flynn took to calling me Tron. All the programmers ran with it, and the nickname stayed with me for years.
So when Kevin said that he needed partners to create the grid, when speaking to Sam at the start of the film, and he brought Tron with him, really, he was bringing his boyfriend with him as well. Near the end of Legacy, Tron seemingly dies, sacrificing himself, protecting the others from Clue, and Flynn sacrifices himself at the end. They both give up everything. Kevin and Tron, queer elders, sacrifice themselves so the younger queer people could have a future, so these boyfriends' queer kids can see the sunrise. Quorra is the heart of the film. Her name is based on the term for heart in Latin, cuore. They're the last ISO, programs who come from outside the literal binary coded system. Clue, an embodiment of toxic masculinity and cis heteronormativity, which I will explain more on later, is so affronted by the existence of the ISOs that he turns on Flynn and Tron and tries to eradicate them for fracturing his perfect system. When we first meet Quorra, they are wearing a helmet and using a voice changer that causes Sam to mistake them for a man.
Hold on, man, you can't make that!
Made it. They only answer Sam's question once they are off the grid, outside the binary, in the Outlands, a place the agents of the system were not designed to traverse and dare not follow.
I'm Quorra!
As mentioned earlier, this film's queer reading heavily comes from it drawing influence from The Matrix.
I just thought, you were a guy.
Most guys do.
While the scene is a clear reference for this moment from The Matrix, it's the differences I find interesting. Quorra chooses to present as masculine and feminine at different times. She also has very specific interests. Quorra relates really strongly to a very specific author, Jules Verne.
But between you and me, Jules Verne is my favorite.
She tells Sam this like it's a secret from Kevin, which shows how she feels safe with Sam. If you didn't know, there's a lot of discussion of queer subtext in the works of Verne within academic spaces. One of the strongest arguers for queer subtext in Verne's work is William Butcher. In Kieran O'Driscoll's paper, Around the World in 80 Gays, retranslating Jules Verne from a queer perspective, O'Driscoll describes him as
Butcher, who has been labeled the father of Verne's studies by his fellow Verne scholars, is a foremost international scholar and translator of the literature of Jules Verne.
O'Driscoll's paper gives an overview of Butcher's work on retranslating Verne's work and discussion of Verne's queerness. If you would like that context, the paper is linked below. Quorra has hidden the map to Zuse's gay nightclub in the pages of Voyage Extraordinaire, a work Butcher mentions as having
an absence of desire for women, but with much obscene ribaldry between the men.
Much like the influence from The Matrix, this is another example of intertextual queer implication, and is particularly interesting in how Quorra hides a piece of connection to a queer person in this work that she feels a connection to. And specifically in L'Île Mystérieuse, Mysterious Island in English, is about people escaping, and as such to me also represents both Quorra's desire for adventure, but more pressingly, an escape from the prison-like system they exist within. Trigger warning, brief discussion of suicide prevention, skip to here if you need. Quorra also has a very dark but very queer backstory.
I prepared for the end, and just as everything was going dark, your father, he saved me.
Now, you can read this as Kevin literally stopping Clue's programs, but I always read this as him saving her from a suicide attempt. That he provided support and acceptance when she felt like the whole world was against her existence. I've been Quorra, and I've been Kevin in that situation. And I know how much just getting support from one person can save you when it feels like there's no hope. It's a genuinely vulnerable moment, one she shares when feeling safe with Sam. Taking into account that Quorra is a program that is outside of the binary code, a literal non-binary being, the metaphor is not subtle, and I can't help but read them as non-binary, not just because they were someone I wanted to be when I did not understand my transness, but because of what's in the text. Much like Sam, they are not a program, this film's stand-in for cishet people. Both are talked about in othering manners.
He's different. User.
You, very rare bird, aren't you?
They are treated as less than people by the system, anomalies to be destroyed or objects of desire to be controlled and possessed. And with that, let's talk about their thembo significant other, Sam. At the start of the film, Sam is a kid running away, running from the loss of their dad, from their identity, and from their responsibilities. It's only once he talks to his adoptive gay father, Alan, that he gets something to run toward, a possibility of his dad, and encouragement to get involved, that things begin to change. They receive the keys to start their journey from both of their dads, who both throw their respective key to Flynn in visually parallel shots from different scenes. The keys to the arcade from Alan, and the coin for the cabinet from Kevin. Sam is able to begin their journey of self-discovery through the guidance from their queer elders. When Sam arrives at the arcade, they find the secret area, and upon opening the terminal, ask, "Who am I?" They then spend the rest of the film constantly asserting their answer to that question. Characters refer to them with both masculine and feminine terms.
The son of Flynn. This, pretty miss, is a conversation best had behind closed doors.
They are repeatedly told to
identify yourself.
Identify yourself, program.
And they always respond,
Wait! I'm not a program! I'm not a program!
I'm not a program. My name is Sam Flynn.
The last one comes at a heroic moment of self-declaration at the end of the film, where their identity is almost said like a damning assault against the system, a declaration of rebellion.
I'm not a program.
I'm not what you say I am. Additionally, the system arrests them because
this program has no disk,
and later tells them,
attention program. You will receive an identity disc.
Which I would hope is clear. He's not just having an item given to him. They are being told what they are.
You will receive an identity.
And they reject it and wield their identity as a weapon against the system. A system that pits marginalized people against each other in blood sports to prevent them from fighting back. As well, the members of the system wield their privileged identity to oppress, to wipe out, to imprison, while Quorra, Sam and Kevin's identities are used to free themselves and each other from that system. Like much of the queerness in this film, this likely comes from the Matrix's influence on Legacy. Sam is defining themselves against the system in the exact same way as Neo, where the agents in the Matrix assert being a man onto Neo.
One life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, program writer. The other life is lived in computers. One of these lives has a future.
But Sam is outside of the system's comprehension. They don't have a file on them, or on Quorra for that matter, because being non-binary is incomprehensible to a binary world. In the Matrix, the system knows exactly what, in its view, is wrong with Neo, but in Tron, the system is confused until they know what Sam's identity is, and once they do, they get hostile. Sam also gets outed by someone who's assimilating into the system.
Rinzler.
He's so extra, he has to do flips at all times. Anyway, this film demonstrates identity through reflection and mirror pairs. Rinzler is one of two pairings with Sam. Their arcs and identity are shown through each other. When we meet Rinzler, he's a full-on lackey. He growls like a dog. Trying to fit into cis-heteronormativity is destroying his humanity and sense of self. He kicks Sam's ass in Disc Wars, drawing blood, and realizing he is a user, outs Sam to the system. And it's noticeable how the toxic masculine representatives of the system and the crowd treat user like a slur.
A user!
Sam and Rinzler are also shown in reflective cinnamon topography throughout the film. When Sam embraces his identity and works with Quorra, they are able to defeat the seemingly undefeatable Rinzler. Rinzler only becomes Tron again after this moment, after being shown queer people are stronger together, and once he's seen Flynn. Just seeing his community allows him to push through the conditioning he has been forced to endure, and much like Sam's heroic moment, he declares,
I fight for the user.
A declaration of identity, and he fights for his queer family just like Sam did when he made his heroic declaration as he went to fight for Quorra. Just like Quorra does when they first introduce themselves and first shows their face after saving Sam. Showing identity is connected to fighting for their community. Rinzler's identity conflict is also shown in their having a second disc. Dual identities of their true self and the artificial forced identity placed onto them by the system. And they lose those discs after redefining themselves, forging a new identity, shown when they change back to blue in the water. Rinzler has another primary parallel in Zuse, pseudonym Castor, who is Michael Sheen at his maximum camp. Zuse helped ISOs during the Purge, which, as established, ISOs are trans. Quorra sends Sam to Zuse thinking he will help them get to the portal so Sam can destroy Clue from the other side. But Zuse is disillusioned.
I believed in users once before.
He's got his, and wants more acceptance. He wants to assimilate, to put his own needs first. Zeus is also hiding his real identity behind the name Castor.
Why, of course Zeus can do these things.
Now for the Greek myth tangent. Castor and Pollux, or Castor and Polydeuces, depending on the telling, were legendary brothers who are mentioned as being dead in the Iliad, but alive in the Odyssey. They live on alternating days due to Zeus's intervention in many versions. As well, this concept of alternating between life and death so both of them can live appears as a consistent theme in otherwise contradictory discussions of these characters. So, Zeus, named after the god who gave Castor temporary life every alternate day, uses Castor as a pseudonym to hide his queerness, implying he's only alive when he gets to be Zeus. More simply, surviving by assimilating is killing him slowly. He only gets to be his true self, use his true name, in a back room of the club. He's only alive some of the time. We learn he stopped helping non-binary people a long time ago and sells out Sam to Clue, later also giving Clue Kevin's identity disc, the key to exiting the grid, in a bargain for his own power, at the likely cost of many other people's lives. And look, honey, it never works out for you, Milo. Zeus also has a business partner, Gem. She's a siren program. Time for Greek tangent number 2. Ovid, in Metamorphoses, Book 5, wrote that the sirens were human companions of Persephone who prayed for wings to fly across the sea when they could not find her anywhere after Hades kidnapped her. Just intense lesbian vibes of a goddess's devoted women's-only group of followers following her to the ends of the earth. Also, a mortal resisting a siren's song causes the siren to die in Higgainis' Fabulae number 141, which is interesting in the context of how Quorra and Sam are very aspec but romantic, and we'll come back to that later. Gem and the other sirens are working in the restrictive confines of the system, quite literally being placed in wall prisons. The sirens also, like Rinzler, clock Sam as queer.
He's different.
While the masculine-presenting programs are forced into roles of violence, where their agency is stripped from them, the feminine-presenting programs are pushed into subservient roles, placed in restrictions of their bodies to do the work that facilitates the male-presenting programs going out to do violence. Gem and Zeus have given up on fighting back.
What am I supposed to do?
Survive.
They think that by assimilating and working with the oppressors, they will receive special treatment and get to live. But the instant the oppressors have everything they need to destroy the others, Gem and Zeus are both unceremoniously murdered and their queer club blown apart. Because all you get for working with fascists and selling out other queer people is being murdered by the fascists. Just a little bit later. This is why it's not enough to just
survive.
When only doing that will guarantee the death of your community. You have to work together and you have to fight back. You're continuously shown that acting specifically to help and protect your community, rather than just selfishly trying to survive, is the morally correct and heroic action in this film. The tension between inaction and trying to fight back against oppression as moral choices is a clear and central theme to not only Tron Legacy, but its surrounding works as well. The writers of the film even explicitly bring the theme into Tron, the pre-sequel. Uprising, that they also wrote. They stated in the first episode,
Your actions have consequences.
So does inaction.
So to explain the theme, we have to go through why Kevin Flynn is the villain. When we meet adult Kevin, he's closed off to Sam. He doesn't explain things, is emotionally distant, and not listening to Sam or Quorra on anything. Kevin still believes he's absolutely right, that he knows perfection. He leaves Sam standing there, clearly deeply emotionally distraught, because Kevin is a bad parent. Also, Garrett is giving the scene everything, and it always destroys me.
Flynn is teaching me about the art of the selfless, about removing oneself from the equation.
Kevin is a shitty mentor to Quorra. He didn't even tell her that Jules Verne is dead.
Do you know Jules Verne?
Sure.
What's he like?
That's not Quorra being naive, as some people read that scene. That's Kevin controlling what information is here. He could have told her about the authors of these books, but chose not to. I know some people are going to say, but what about that line from Kevin?
Profoundly naive. Unimaginably wise.
Well, the whole point of the movie is that Kevin's wrong about a lot of things.
I understand that now.
So why would we believe Kevin? Kevin underestimates everyone endlessly chasing perfection that he believes only he is capable of. He thinks Clue is unbeatable because, as discussed earlier, the electronic clone of the characters represents aspects of their real counterpart. Clue is an embodiment of Kevin's internalized toxic masculinity and Allos' heteronormativity. He is Kevin's mirror pairing, literally made from a mirror of Kevin. Kevin being the villain is even explicitly stated by Kevin in this scene.
Must have been something before Clue screwed it up.
He's me. I screwed it up.
Sometimes the film is pretty blatant about it. The scene is literally, Kevin, do you suck?
Yeah.
Kevin has not been fighting back.
It's amazing how productive doing nothing can be.
He is in some ways doing the same thing as Gem and Zuse, hiding out, repressing himself, hoping someone else will handle the problems.
If we sit tight, Clue might be brought down from the inside.
Kevin is also, at this point, putting all of the blame on Clue.
So what happened?
Clue happened.
But it's his flawed creation, and he's not taking responsibility to undo the harm he's caused by creating the system the way he did. Both Sam and Quorra, who are the heroes, can't just stand by and let things happen to good people. They both independently make decisions to cause change. Quorra chose to go save Sam. She also chose to send Sam to Zuse so that Zuse could get Sam to the portal. And Sam argues with Kevin that they have to act.
Portal's closed and we can't just sit around. We have to move now.
And takes up the opportunity Quorra provided. But things go poorly, not because Sam and Quorra taking action was incorrect, but because Kevin not participating meant they both lacked relevant information. Kevin is very egotistical, so self-focused that his clone and him at one point believe they know what perfection is and should impose it upon the world.
In there is our destiny. Our system will blossom!
Clue genuinely believes that he
did everything! Everything you ever asked! I executed the plan!
Because Kevin ran away from the real world to construct what he thought was the perfect system. Once Kevin had failed, he was so ashamed and defeated that he basically gave up and then tried to justify it.
It's amazing how productive doing nothing can be.
After the fight at the club and losing his disc, he yells at Sam,
"You've done enough already!"
Because really he's angry at his own ups, but he takes it out on his own kid. He's also why Quorra feels guilty about sending Sam to Zuse, because Kevin, deep down, is a garbage boy stinkman. He even, when Sam asks,
"So what do we do now?"
says,
"I don't know. Nothing."
Before finally realizing that it's all been his mistakes, and things only get better once he decides to
do it your way. Full-on sprint to the portal.
Instead of taking charge, he lets the younger generation spur him to action. It's after this point that he admits that he was the one who messed things up.
He's me. I screwed it up.
Kevin also has a habit of getting others to sacrifice themselves for him. Between Tron stopping Clue for Kevin,
Flynn, no!
And teaching Quorra to sacrifice themselves as well.
Flynn is teaching me about removing oneself from the equation.
What's she doing?
Removing herself from the equation.
He's continually shown to be just as selfish as his clone, and Sam constantly shows his teachings to be wrong.
We gotta get to the portal.
You won't last in here. Quorra won't last.
This contrast between Sam and Kevin, working with others versus being more individualistic, is also shown in their respective light cycle scenes. In the original Tron, Kevin splits up to take people on one-on-one.
This is gold 1 to gold 2 and 3. Split up, take them one-on-one.
In Legacy, Sam only succeeds by being collaborative.
We gotta work together! It's the only way!
As I hope you can see by now, Kevin is consistently incorrect throughout the film, and the times when Sam and Quorra make mistakes, it's mostly caused by Kevin. Remember how Sam and Tron/Rinzler are a reflective pair? Well, Sam's also in a mirror pair with Quorra that I'll explain in a bit. What I want you to notice is that all three of these characters are the primarily trans-coded characters. If Clue is the internalized issues that Flynn has grown beyond, and Clue harms Tron by turning him into Rinzler through a clear and blatant metaphor to conversion therapy, well, when combined with Kevin abandoning both Sam and his boyfriend Alan, who is Tron in the same way Clue is Flynn, we can read this as Kevin rejecting the trans people in his life, his child, and his significant other. Kevin's whole character arc afterwards is built around learning that he was wrong, and it was only when he was confronted with how harmful his internalized cisnormativity was that he was able to learn and grow. By helping Quorra when she was at her darkest moments, and seeing Clue's attack on Tron, Kevin sees the harm his internalized self-hate is capable of, and these experiences change him. When Quorra and Sam's lives are threatened, it shatters his
Zen thing, man.
Kevin is unequivocally wrong throughout the majority of the film, and is only right at the end of the film, when he acknowledges his flawed view of perfection.
The thing about perfection is that it's unknowable. You wouldn't know that because I didn't when I created you. I'm sorry.
And gives up everything for his community instead of being self-focused. Instead of being closed off, he opens up to his kid.
Sam, I'd have given it all up for one more day with you.
He stops trying to just survive and really tries to live and guarantee that his community can continue to live. We're even visually shown that Sam has changed him when Sam spurs Kevin to action, and then Sam goes and seizes Kevin's identity disc. And we see this heroic Sam through Kevin's identity disc, through his viewpoint. Kevin giving his disc to Quorra and Sam is the symbolic passing of the torch for the next generation. He is giving all that he is to those who will come after, which is then followed by his actual sacrifice. So, as much as Kevin is frustrating, a bad dad, an even worse leader, his final moments still always get me emotionally.
Why? He's my son.
Sam and Quorra, much like their counterparts in Neo and Trinity, expand their understanding of themselves and reaffirm their identities through their relationship to each other. They take equal parts in saving each other at different points. Both of them save each other from being controlled by Clue. Quorra saves Sam from the game grid where he's Clue's plaything.
Get in.
And Sam helps Quorra escape from being Clue's prisoner. In both instances, it's about helping each other gain agency back that the system is trying to take from them. Their actions always bolster each other's autonomy and self-agency, unlike the villains of the film Kevin and Clue, with Kevin's redemption being specifically helping them achieve freedom from the system. Part of what makes them so queer is that they're not shot like film allo-cishet couples. They don't touch each other like those couples, and they don't talk like them either. The influence from how the Wachowski sisters film queer romance, at least to me, is self-evident. Much of the relationship is in the gaze and longing, in quiet moments of conversation, in little touches of reaffirmment, in reassuring words that tell each other that they're safe.
He never thought he'd see you again.
Hey, it's okay. We're safe for now.
It was a mistake.
It's okay. Made a few myself. I came with a girl. A program. Where is she?
Clue won't be here any minute. We'll never make it.
Come on. Made it.
The relationship is decidedly romantic, but incredibly ace. Did you remember that they never kiss? Instead, the big emotional payoff, the romantic payoff, and the thematic climax of the film is an incredibly sweet shot of Quorra cuddling into Sam as they drive into the sunrise. A sunrise that Sam is showing Quorra because he knows how much it matters to her.
It's how I imagine a sunrise to be. Something bigger, something better in this world.
So why does it matter that I have an unhealthy obsession with how queer this film is? Well, because even if it didn't intend to, it has some good messages about queerness. That we can't be complacent fighting against oppression. That we need intergenerational connections and intercommunity solidarity between all queer people. That conversion therapy doesn't work. And that we can defeat internalized beliefs that society has placed on us and become better for it. That there's a sunrise out there for us too. Secondly, when I was a kid, I didn't see myself anywhere. I kept dreaming of a world I thought I would never see, so I found representation where I could, like so many other queer people before me. I didn't know the words non-binary or asexual or what they meant until I was in university, but I always had those feelings, and I knew that this film connected emotionally with me in a way that a lot of other media had not, that I yearned to have what Quorra and Sam have. Not a sexual relationship, but supportive and caring and romantic. I wanted to be Quorra on the back of that bike, cuddling up to someone I felt safe with and who felt safe with me. This movie meant so much to me that I went and bought the soundtrack the first chance I could. It's genuinely my favorite film score of all time. It was the first music I ever bought with my own money. It expanded my love of music, something that is a huge part of my life. I listened to that soundtrack when I felt alone. When I moved out, it was one of the few movies I took from my parents' place. And it was only once I had come out that I realized why it had affected me so much. Because despite all its flaws and problems, it had made me feel seen in a way that very few pieces of media had before. However, I should not have to read into things. I and all queer people should see ourselves represented in the media we watch, and Disney, creators of Tron Legacy, very rarely, if ever, does so. Disney should be condemned for its continuous use of queerbaiting and for its role erasure in the rare instances it does have queer people. For example, Sylvie in Loki being trans but played by a cis actor. That is, as of episode 3. They might contradict it later, which would make things worse. I will be doing a video on role erasure later, subscribe to see that. I said Tron Legacy is unintentionally queer for a reason, and you should not take this video as me endorsing vague hinting at queerness without showing it. There are only 9 non-binary characters in film, most of which are terrible representation. There are 2 asexual characters in film, one of whom is Ozymandias in Zack Snyder's Watchmen, so that's where things are. Explicit representation is necessary and important, and for most of my life, there has been none. But things are finally changing. I'm starting to see that world I dreamed of. I'm starting to see people like myself actually on the screen. I don't have to go searching for some metaphor that might be potentially like myself, with no positive, real examples. This year we are getting Mason Alexander Park as Gren in the live-action Cowboy Bebop reboot, and Desire in Neil Gaiman's Sandman TV show. Both characters are non-binary, and Mason is non-binary themselves. We also have Blue Del Barrio as Adira in Star Trek Discovery, and in kids media, we have Angel Lorenzana playing a cartoon version of themselves in the animated show Craig of the Creek. It's a start towards younger people like myself getting to see that they exist. But it's not enough, frankly, because it's only a start. Non-binary people are still only given scraps, and we almost never get to be the ones to tell our own stories. Positive ace characters are even rarer. The most famous ace characters usually get erased in their adaptions, just look how they mess with my boy Jughead in Riverdale. Every time a queer character is erased, it's a purposeful attempt to try and tell younger queer people that we're aberrant, unnatural, or that we don't exist. But the internet's broken that. You don't have absolute control over who gets to talk anymore. We built a system where information access was given to everyone, just like the film talked about. Even before that, we would search each other out, like some invisible magnet drawing us together. There are many bigots who believe that if you just never show queer people other queer people, if we never see ourselves, that we just won't be queer. But I hope that this overly long hyperfixation ramble has shown one thing. I found my self-representation wherever I could, well before I even had the language to say what I am. No amount of erasure prevented how I felt, but it did leave me with a lot of pain and hardship that no one should have to go through. That's all that no or only bad representation does. It hurts us. It convinces us that we don't belong in this world, because you can't stop us from being ourselves. And not showing us in media will never stop us from finding ourselves reflected anyway. When you grow up without representation, you end up searching for it. You find queerness where none was intended. Because many times, what we see in media says less about that media and a lot more about ourselves and the subjective experiences we bring along when reading it. You will never be able to get rid of us. We will always be here, and we will always be queer. I dreamt of a world I thought I would never see, and despite everything working against me, I now believe I might just get to see it.
I watch the sun go down like every one of us, just hoping that the dawn will bring a sign, a better place for those who will come after us this time. I'm just a dreamer, dream my life away. I'm just a dreamer.